Hey piano people, in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to memorize every inversion of major and minor chords. It's essential that you know your inversions because most often when you encounter chords in real life music, they're in inversions, which if you're unfamiliar with can seem really confusing. However, by the end of this tutorial, in just 2 steps, you'll know exactly how to memorize your inversions so that you can spot them very easily in any piece of music. Welcome to Ashley Young Music Studio. I'm Ashley and I'm here to teach you how to practice smarter, not harder. Let's dive in. Step 1 is to know the inversions and memorize how they look. So chord inversion is when you take the notes of a chord and mix them up. We're going to talk about 3 inversions of your major and minor chords today. We have root position, first inversion, and second inversion. Now, one thing to note in this video is that we'll only be covering these inversions in their most basic form so that you can start to build a solid foundation with inversions. But just know in the back of your head that eventually when you look for these chords in music, you'll see slight variations on these inversions as well. So let's start with a C major chord in root position. Now I have a whole entire video that I'll link at the end of this video that shows you how to find all of the major and minor chords, but just a quick review. To make a major chord, we're gonna pick our starting note, we're gonna go up 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're gonna go up 3 half steps, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is how we build a major chord on any note in root position. Now, when we're in root position, the name of the chord is the name of the bottom note. Now, if we want to make this chord minor, we're just going to take the third of the chord or the middle note of the chord and we're going to lower it a half step and now it's a minor chord. And that's true on any major chord. Now, a root position major or minor chord is always going to look like a snowman on the staff. And I know that's really silly, but you can see that a root position major chord is going to be like a line note, a line note, a line note, or it's going to be all space notes. And the notes are close enough together that they're stacked on top of each other and they look like a little snowman. And you want to memorize the way that that looks on the staff because you know when you see a chord that looks like a little snowman, that's a line note, line note, line note, or space note, space note, space note, it is a root position chord. Now, to make a first inversion chord, we're going to take that root and put it somewhere else. Okay, so for the sake of this video, we're going to put the root on top. And that means that the third of the chord is on the bottom, or the note that was originally the middle note is now the bottom note. Okay, so in a chord, we have our root, our third, and our fifth. And a first inversion chord means that the third of the root chord is now on the bottom. So in the case of the C major chord, that means that the E is on the bottom. And sticking with the theme of this video, we're going to say that this one looks like a snowman with a long neck, right? So the 2 parts, like the bottom and the middle of the snowman's body are there, and then a long neck, and then the head on the very top. Okay, so first inversion chord always has the third on the bottom and it looks like a snowman with a long neck. The other way you can think about it is that the bottom 2 notes are closer together than the top 2 notes. And that's always going to be true of this basic first inversion chord, is that the bottom 2 notes form an interval of a third or form an interval that is closer together, and the top 2 notes are an interval of a fourth or they're farther apart than the bottom 2 notes. Now let's look at second inversion. So a second inversion chord always has the fifth of that original root chord on the bottom. So if we go back to our root chord, we have our root, our third, our fifth. The second inversion chord has this fifth on the bottom. So that means the other 2 notes can be on top. So the G is on the bottom, and now it's just an exact reversal of the first inversion chord. So in the first inversion chord, it was a snowman with a long neck. The bottom 2 notes were closer together, the top 2 notes were further apart. And when we go to second inversion, it's the exact opposite. The top 2 notes are closer together and the bottom 2 notes are farther apart. So this one is almost like a snowman with long legs. So we have the feet way down here, long legs, the middle of the body, and then the head. Now, with my inversions, I can still make them minor by lowering the third of the chord. So let's go back to root position. And the third of the chord is always that middle note in root position that I lowered. But when I'm in first inversion, I know that the third is right here, so let's lower it. Now, that's a minor first inversion chord. Now in second inversion, let's find the third of the chord, which in this chord is E. It's right here, let's lower it. Now that's a minor second inversion chord. So you can still make any of the inversions minor by keeping that third lowered. Step 2 is to get the sound, the feel, and the order of the notes into the deeper layers of your memory. And in order to do this, I'm going to show you how to practice these inversions in a few different ways. But before I do that, I wanted to let you know I have an amazing free event coming up here in just a couple of weeks called Piano Practice Lab. This is a 4-day event where you and I hang out in Zoom and I teach you how to design a weekly practice routine that accelerates your trajectory beyond the notes towards confident musical expression. I've done this event in the past and people absolutely love it. They walk away with life-changing information. Seats are limited for this free event, so go ahead and grab the link in the description below, reserve your free seat right now. Let's go back to our C major and minor chords. Now, you're going to practice the inversions focusing on how they sound, the way that they feel in your hand and which fingers you're using, and which note is on the bottom. Now, I like to do this with a very simple exercise to start, and then I'm going to give you a couple of more difficult levels for this exercise. But the simplest way you can do this is to take a chord and practice putting it in the various inversions while speaking out loud. So this is our root position C major chord, first inversion, second inversion, back up to root. And then I'm going to come back down, second inversion, first inversion, root. Now notice that what's key here is that I'm saying the inversions of the chords. When you say the inversion as you play it, it engages your brain and makes you actively think about what you're playing. This means that you commit the information to the deeper layers of your memory. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to say which note is on the bottom along with the inversion. So root position with C on the bottom. First inversion, E is on the bottom. Second inversion, G is on the bottom. Root position, C is on the bottom. Now, if you really want to get the sound of these inversions into your memory, you can sing them as you arpeggiate them. It doesn't matter if you're a singer, just follow along and sing with me. Root C, and so we'd sing C, E, G, root position, and then first inversion, E on the bottom, E, G, C, first inversion, and then second inversion, G on the bottom, G, C, E, G, C, E, and you can come back down, you can go up, you can do it in all sorts of different ways and sing along because that really gets it into your ear memory. Now, I want you to make sure that you take note of the timestamp on this video where these exercises are so that you can come back to them over and over again as you work through all of the major and minor chords and their inversions, because you're going to want to do this with all of the major chords and come back and do these various levels of exercises with all of the chords. Now, your 2 bonus tips, I want you to do both hands so that you don't leave one behind, right? So when you're doing this practice, you can actually include the left hand, or you can just do the left hand. You can alternate between the left and the right hand, or you can do them hands together so that one does not get left behind. And then the second bonus tip, and this is very, very important, is to follow the correct fingerings. Okay, when you are practicing chords and inversions of chords, there are actually a standard set of fingers that we use for all of them. And this doesn't mean that you will always use these fingers every single time that chords come up in music, but it builds the proper technique so that when you encounter chords in music, you have a sense of how to pick the correct fingerings in various styles and various levels of pieces. So I created a freebie for you, a PDF that you can download totally for free that's going to include all of the fingerings for the major and minor inversions of these chords so that you are sure that you are memorizing them correctly. Do not improvise your fingering here. Do not just go with what feels right. Print out the freebie, follow the fingerings. You're going to memorize them faster and in the proper way that builds proper technique. So take these 2 steps and go forward to memorize all of the inversions of your major and minor chords. Don't forget to reserve your free seat in Piano Practice Lab where you will learn to design a weekly practice routine that moves you beyond the notes to confident musical expression. I'm going to put that link right here on the end screen, and I'm also going to link to another video that's going to teach you how to memorize all of the major and minor chords in their root position. You can grab the link to Piano Practice Lab and that video right here on the end screen. Happy practicing.